Paris, September 19, 1997, in the green room of the Théâtre du Châtelet, 40 minutes before the annual Gala des Artistes was scheduled to begin. A woman said something to Johnny Hallyday that he was not supposed to hear. She said it to the man beside her in a voice calibrated for private conversation in a room with marble floors and high ceilings and the particular acoustic generosity of old Parisian theatres that carry whispers further than their owners intend. She said it while looking at her reflection in the mirror above the makeup table, adjusting an earring, with the particular confidence of someone who has never had a reason to lower their voice in a green room, because they have always been the most important person in it. She said the problem with Johnny Hallyday at these events is that he can only sing the old songs. He has nothing new. He is a monument. You visit monuments. You don't actually listen to them. Johnny Hallyday was standing 4 meters away with a glass of water, and he heard every word. The woman who said it was named Isabelle Renoir. 38 years old, the most commercially successful French female singer of the previous 4 years. 3 consecutive #1 albums, 2 Victoires de la Musique Awards, a television special that had drawn 9 million viewers in January. She wore that evening a deep emerald green silk gown, her dark hair pinned with diamond clips, diamond earrings, a particular quality of assembled perfection that communicates both beauty and effort simultaneously. She was talented. She worked hard. She had earned everything she had. She had also, over the 4 years of her success, developed the particular blind spot that arrives with rapid fame. The belief that recent success is the same thing as deep knowledge, that selling 3 consecutive #1 albums gives you authority over everything that preceded them. The man beside her was her manager, Frederick, 44 years old, dark suit, pale blue tie. The practiced neutrality of someone who has learned to neither agree with nor contradict what his client says in public spaces. Frederick had heard Johnny Hallyday behind them. His face showed this. Isabelle had not looked up from the mirror. Johnny Hallyday set his glass of water on the counter of the green room. He had been leaning against the wall in the corner, with the particular unoccupied quality of someone who arrives early to a room and finds a place in it that requires nothing of anyone. He wore that evening a deep burgundy slim-cut velvet jacket over a black crew-neck t-shirt, dark charcoal slim trousers, black leather Chelsea boots with a slight elastic side panel, a simple silver ring on his right hand, his graying brown hair slightly disheveled. Not styled for the event, simply how it was. 54 years old, medium height, slightly broad-shouldered, the particular ease of someone who has been in green rooms for 37 years and finds them neither exciting nor threatening. He looked at Isabelle Renoir's reflection in the mirror for 3 seconds. She had still not looked up. He said nothing. He picked up his glass of water again, finished it. The Maybu, and walked to the side of the room where the running order sheet for the evening was pinned to a corkboard. He was scheduled 4th, after the opening act, after a comedian, after Isabelle Renoir herself. 3 new songs from his most recent album, recorded and released 8 months ago. Songs that the radio had played with the particular cautious enthusiasm of stations that wanted to be supportive without committing. Songs that the critics had called respectable. Songs that his record label had called a solid continuation. He unpinned the running order sheet, took a pen from his jacket pocket, made 2 changes, repinned the sheet. Then he walked to find the musical director. The musical director was a man named Sylvain, 42 years old, compact and precise, wearing a dark green corduroy jacket over a white shirt, dark navy trousers, brown leather shoes, standing in the corridor outside the stage with a clipboard and the focused expression of someone who had 17 things happening simultaneously and was managing all of them with the contained competence of someone who had been doing exactly this for 20 years. Johnny Hallyday said 4 sentences to Sylvain. Sylvain looked at him, then at his clipboard, then at Johnny Hallyday again. "You want to open with that?" said Sylvain. "Yes," said Johnny Hallyday. "That's not what we rehearsed," said Sylvain. "I know," said Johnny Hallyday. "Do you need time to adjust?" Sylvain looked at his clipboard for 3 seconds. His expression was the expression of a musical director calculating whether what was being asked was possible rather than whether it was a good idea. He had learned over 20 years that the second question was not his job. "Give me 15 minutes, said Sylvain. Johnny Halliday nodded. "Thank you. Here is the first twist of this story. The change Johnny Halliday made to the running order was not what anyone expected. He did not move his slot. He did not change which songs he was performing. He changed one specific thing. He asked to open the evening instead of performing fourth. Before the opening act. Before the comedian. Before Isabelle Renaud. First. Sylvain made the adjustment. The theatre director was informed. The stage manager updated his cues. In the green room, the running order sheet was updated on the corkboard. Isabelle Renaud saw the updated sheet 15 minutes before the gala was scheduled to begin. She looked at it. Then at Frederick. "He changed his slot," she said. Frederick looked at the sheet. "Yes," he said. "Why?" said Isabelle. Frederick looked at the sheet again. He said nothing, because there was nothing useful to say. The Théâtre du Châtelet that evening had an audience of 1,200 people. The particular composition of a Paris gala audience in 1997. Industry professionals and journalists and invited guests and a section of competition winners in the upper balcony whose energy was different from the rest of the house. Less managed, more direct. At 8 o'clock precisely the house lights went down. No announcer, no introduction, no opening act. The stage was dark for 4 seconds, then a single spotlight came on at center stage. Johnny Halliday was already there. He wore his deep burgundy velvet jacket over the black t-shirt, dark charcoal trousers, black Chelsea boots, the simple silver ring on his right hand, his graying brown hair slightly disheveled under the single spotlight. No backing band visible yet, just a man in a spotlight on an empty stage. He said nothing for 3 seconds. He looked at 1,200 people in the dark. Then he said, "I was told tonight that I can only sing old songs." The house was completely still, he said, "so let's start with something new. Here is what happened in the next 4 minutes and 20 seconds. The band came in from the wings, quietly, without fanfare, taking their positions in the semi-darkness at the edges of the stage. The bassist in a deep teal shirt, the guitarist in a rust-orange jacket, the keyboard player in a pale yellow linen shirt. The drummer behind his kit at the back. They played the opening of a song that had been recorded 8 months ago and released on an album that the radio had played with cautious enthusiasm and the critics had called respectable, but they played it differently from the record. Sylvain, in the 15 minutes he had been given, had made one specific adjustment. He had stripped the arrangement back to its essential elements. No production layer, no synthesized texture, just the song itself at its structural core. The way songs sound when you remove everything that was added in the studio and leave only what was written. What was left was something that the radio version had buried under its respectability. Johnny Halliday sang, not the way the album version was sung, with the measured professionalism of a 54-year-old who knows his instrument and has learned to protect it. He sang it the way it had been written, which was differently, which was with the particular urgency of something that had not yet been made careful. The 1,200 people in the Théâtre du Châtelet heard this, not all of them immediately, but enough of them, and then more, and then the rest. In the green room, which had a monitor showing the stage feed, Isabelle Renaud was watching. Frederick was standing beside her. He said nothing. She said nothing. She watched Johnny Halliday sing a new song in a stripped arrangement in a single spotlight, and she heard what she heard. She was talented enough to hear it accurately. She was honest enough in that moment to know what she was hearing. She said nothing for the duration of the song. When it ended, and the 1,200 people in the house produced the particular sound of an audience that has received something it did not fully anticipate, Isabelle Renaud looked at the monitor for another 3 seconds. Then she turned to Frederick. "I said that where he could hear it," she said. Frederick looked at her. "Yes," he said. She was quiet for a moment. Then she said, "Was that deliberate? The slot change, did he do it because of what I said?" Frederick looked at the monitor where Johnny Halliday was now speaking to the audience, between songs with the easy warmth of someone who has been doing this for 37 years and finds it as natural as conversation. Then he looked at Isabel. "I think he did it because he had something to prove," said Frederick. "Not to you. To himself." Isabel Renaud looked at the monitor. Then she did something that surprised Frederick, who had known her for 6 years and thought he had seen most of her responses to most situations. She said, "I was wrong." Not to Frederick. Not to the room, simply out loud, as a fact being stated accurately. Here is the final twist of this story. After the gala, in the corridor outside the green room, Isabel Renaud approached Johnny Halliday. He was talking to Sylvain, the musical director, with the particular warm directness of someone debriefing a concert, what worked, what didn't, what to carry forward. He was still in his deep burgundy velvet jacket, the silver ring on his right hand, his graying brown hair still slightly disheveled from the performance. Isabel Renaud said, "Monsieur Halliday." He turned. She said, "I said something earlier that you heard, and I was wrong. Not about the old songs. Those are extraordinary. I was wrong about the new ones. I hadn't heard them properly." Johnny Halliday looked at her for a moment. His expression was not the expression of someone receiving an apology and deciding how to respond to it. It was simply attentive. Then he said, "The new songs are difficult to hear properly until they're stripped back. The record buried them a little. Tonight was the first time I heard them the way they were written." Isabel Renaud looked at him. "That was the first time you heard them that way," she said. "Yes," said Johnny Halliday. She was quiet for a moment. Then she said, "You changed your slot because of what I said." Johnny Halliday was quiet for 3 seconds. Then he said, "I changed my slot because I needed to know something. You gave me the reason to find out tonight instead of later." He extended his hand. She shook it. A proper handshake. Direct, brief, equal. He turned back to Sylvain and continued the debrief. "And here is what this September evening in the Théâtre du Châtelet leaves all of us. A woman said something careless in a room with good acoustics. The man she said it about heard it. He did not argue. He did not perform offense. He made 2 changes on a running order sheet with a pen and went to find the musical director. Then he stood in a single spotlight in front of 1,200 people and said, 'I was told tonight that I can only sing old songs. So let's start with something new.' And then he proved it. Not to her, not to the audience, to himself, because that is the only proof that actually counts. The proof you make for yourself when someone gives you the specific reason to find out something you already suspected but hadn't yet confirmed. Johnny Halliday that evening was not a rock star defending his reputation. He was a 54-year-old man who heard something careless said in a green room and used it as the specific reason to do something he should have done 8 months earlier. Strip the new songs back, remove the production, find what was written underneath it, and sing it the way it was meant to be sung. The woman who said the careless thing was honest enough to say I was wrong when she heard the result. That is the whole story. And you, have you ever heard something careless said about you and used it as the reason to prove something to yourself rather than to the person who said it? Tell us in the comments. Because these are the stories that remind us that the best response to being underestimated is not an argument. It is the thing itself, done the way it was always meant to be done.